And welcome. We are working on
But,
an animation. We are working
by
on
the way,
yeah,
if I do this way on my screen, boom.
that's the idea. That's what he's trying to work on, the animation. I love it. Binyomin showing how to be away but still be at home with the Torah. Excellent. Lounging. We are on Yud Daled Amid Beis. We are up to Amar Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Chanina, about 10 lines up on Yudalit Amid Beis, and the Gemara is discussing the penalty for someone who violates the Naziris after the end of the obligatory term, but before completing the procedures necessary to achieve a release from them. So he completed the 30 days, or 29, whatever that you hold, and now you have to bring a carbon, you have to shave your head, and oops, he's walking in the street and he trips over a dead guy.
Oh, man. Hate when that happens.
Or he, someone forcibly shaves his head, maybe? Or he brings the coronas.
Or what about if he shaves his head? Oh. Well, would that be so bad if someone forcibly shaves his head? It's like...
I don't know.
He's supposed to.
What?
Yeah. I think he's supposed to be cutting his hair now. Like, would that be so bad if he cut his hair?
Good question.
Okay. But I think the dead guy one is...
Yeah. Amar Reisi Bar Chanina, Nazir Shekala Lo Yama, but Nazir whose days have ended, his obligatory days, Loika El Hatuma, receives lashes for the Tuma. Ve'ena Loika. This is where we're up to, right? By the way, we didn't skip anything from yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Ve'en Loika El Hatig Lachas, but he does not receive lashes for shaving his head, nor for drinking wine. Even on the 32nd day of a standard term, when Tumah no longer causes any forfeiture of days, Tumah is still punishable by lashes, as Zayzak the Rosh. On the 31st day, it causes forfeiture, but only because of a rabbinic enactment, as see Taisvis. However, the penalty of lashes no longer applies to cutting hair or drinking wine at this time. However, the penalty of lashes no longer applies to cutting hair or drinking wine at this time, though these activities are still forbidden to the Nazir pending the offering of his concluding sacrifices. So there's something about Tumah, Rabbi Binyomin, that is more serious than if he was to shave his head or drink wine. Ma'ishna Tumah Delaki. What is different about the Tumah that is still punishable by lashes? Damakra Kol Yemei Hazir La Hashem. Because the pasuk says, all the days that he keeps himself a Nazir unto Hashem. The full pasuk says, all the days that keeps himself a Nazir unto Hashem, he may not approach a dead person. The rabbis Yamim Shalachim Leis. The word all comes to include days following the completion of his term and to teach that they are the days like prior to the completion of his term. The pasuk teaches that the penalty of lashes for tumah continues to apply during all days in which a person must maintain himself as a Nazir, even those beyond the end of the term, until the Nazir is released from their prohibition by the concluding rituals. It's because the pasuk says mas layava. It's interesting that the Gemara only quotes the first half, but the second half is critical to the meaning behind the Gemara.
Yeah. I feel like people just had we're so fluent in Sukkah.
You think so?
You could just bring the first part and like everyone knew the end.
Arab, do you think that people were fluent in Sukkah back in the day? The Gemara quotes a part of the pasuk. And then, but the crux of the Gemara's intention is later on in the pasuk, but it only gave a little few words. You think people? Rabbi Binyomin says that people were a bit more knowledgeable in they didn't rely on the print hundreds of years ago. They didn't have it, right? Everything was handwritten. That's why they had to, right? That's why we rely on oral Torah more now, because we need it.
Today we're lucky that we have everything in print, so we don't have to remember.
Right. Okay, so the Gemara ihachi. Maybe this is okay. Atiglachas namil chayav. Let him also be chayav for lashes for shaving his hair. The Rachmana, for the Torah says, "Kol yimei neder nizrei tar lo yavar al rosh." All the days is out, so there's no razor may pass over his head. Lashes yamim shalachim leising yamim. Shlifnei Malais, which should make the days after completion of his term just like the days before the completion. You're saying the word all is all inclusive. You have the word all by the shaving. Visu, and furthermore, Kol Yemei Nizrei Mikol Asher Yes Migep and Hayayin. You have the word koil as it relates to the wine. Maybe the Gemara intentionally didn't say it up, so it's like setting us up for the answer of like, yeah, but it says.
And also, right, I was like, oh, everyone knows Psukim. Well, if everyone knows Psukim, then you would have known these two.
Right.
Okay, but total setup.
We may not approach
Sting operation.
No, but all these psukim also, it's a good question, even based on what we said before. It says all, and it says it by all three cases. It says it by tuma, it says all by shaving of the head, and it says all by the drinking of the wine. Lasis yam shalachim lois piyam shalifnei melois. That just like the days after should be like just like the days before. So why are we saying only when it comes to tumah do you get lashes, but when it comes to shaving the head or drinking a nice bartanura white wine, you are not going to get lashes on day 32?
Good question.
More answers. Shani hachi. It's different here in the case of tumah damar rachmana v'timei roishay nazar, and contaminate his nazar head. Okay, why we wear a shtickle, right? Which teaches that Misha Nizrei Taluloi Baroshi. Violation of the Tumah prohibition is punishable for anyone whose Naziris is contingent on shaving his head. Huh? The full pasuk says, but if someone were to die suddenly beside him and contaminate his Nazar head, he is to shave his head on the day of his purification. On the 7th day, he shall shave it. Okay, on that day, if that happens, he has to wait 7 days to be tar, and then on the 7th day he shaves it. But it says something interesting by the case of tumah. It says, and contaminate his nazar head, which teaches that the violation of the tumah prohibition is punishable for anyone whose naziris is contingent on shaving his head. Someone who has completed his term and continues to be a nazar only because he has not yet shaved his head and brought the concluding sacrifice is said to be a nazar contingent on shaving his head. It is only with tumah that the Torah uses the expression nazar head, and consequently, only tumah is punishable during the period between the completion of the term and the front of his concluding rituals. Yeah, but when you drink wine, it's also contingent on the nazar's head. The distinction between tumah and other Nazir's provision is challenged. Right? You're going to tell me that by tumah, something to do with this Nazir's head, and therefore the Nazirus is contingent on shaving his head, and that's why you're punishable, whatever that means. Meishvei, they challenge us from the following advice. Nazir shakala yamav, a Nazir whose obligatory days have ended. Also like alech l'shtos yaim will come in the mason. It's forbidden to shave his head, drink wine, or contact tumah from the dead. If he shaved his head or drank wine or contracted tumah from the dead, or he receives 40 lashes. This price only contradicts the contention of Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Chanina, and therefore concludes it would be all three. But in the Havamina, for some reason, Rabbi Yossi Barab Chanina thought that the fact that by Tumah it says the words V'timei roishai nizar and contaminate his nazar head.
So focus on the word
V'tamei.
Right.
That the violation of the Tumah prohibition is punishable for anyone whose naziris is contingent on shaving his head. So tamei and head together.
I think I get why you're confused, because it's almost like it's specifying head, which is hair cutting, right?
Right. Yeah.
But then we're trying to emphasis on the tumah part.
Right.
Right. So it's funny. It's like tumah head, whatever.
But more than that, it's contingent on shaving his head. A nazir who has yet to cut his hair, who then cuts his hair, should get lashes also.
Right. So why is it the focus on Tuma from the Pasuk? It should actually be the haircut.
I guess because the pasuk says tummy. There's the fact that the Torah says when someone has yet to shave his head and drinks wine, the Torah doesn't say that.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It says tummy before someone shaved his head. It doesn't say cuts his hair before he's supposed to cut before it's contingent on his head. It says tummy. The fact that the word 4 letters vitime is in the Torah, that's why it's only there you would get lashes. Okay, I mean, fine. But we have a brisa that says that you do get lashes. Okay, it's a
yeah.
The question, though, is you can then ask, say, why does the Torah say taka vitime roishin hizar? What are we learning? What do we learn out from that word vitime? If Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina wanted to learn the word vitime to teach you something, and then you have a brisa that's not, how does that brisa learn out? What does vitime come to teach me?
Great question. At the
11-minute mark.
I don't see where we're at. Minute mark.
11-minute mark. We're going to ask this to Reb Avi Langer, who gave us a great answer yesterday. He's the Chavrusa Daf's Shoel Umesha.
Ooh, we're giving out titles. I like it. Okay.
I wish we can bring him in. You know, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? We have a lifeline.
Phone a friend.
30 seconds.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, maybe your editor could add him in.
I'll be honest with you.
Picture of him. Yeah.
Today was the hardest day to get myself to learn. You know, when something's new, it's exciting.
Fresh.
Today I felt like the Yetzer Hara was strong on me.
Well, I'm glad. Maybe it's hard, this is all virtual, but maybe
I don't think it was a virtual thing. You think it was you could take a day off, whatever. You've been doing great.
Well, that's why Chavrusa Daf's so great, because today I actually had this energy to really want to do it. So on certain days that maybe there were days that you were more interested than me. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna come. I didn't voice that to you, but we're here. That's the Chavrusa Daf. That we pull each other into it.
It infuses the energy from one hand.
Right. I feel it. You feel it. Yeah.
Right. Zok the Mishnah. Hareini Nazir. What? Hareini Nazir l'chiei li bein. If someone says, I'm hereby Nazir when I will have a son, then Nazir mei yom, and I am hereby Nazir for 100 days. This is the Mishnah that we referenced earlier. Nod le bein. If a son is born to him at any time, maybe not. Ad shivim, at any time up to 70 days into his term, loy hisid klum. He observes his Nazirs concurrently with his own. He loses nothing. V'achar shivim, if his son is born after 70 days, soiser shivim, he forfeits 70, or he must suspend his own Nazirs to observe his sons. Shein tiklachas pachas mishlei, because there is no head shaving for a growth of less than 30 days. Wow. Okay. I mean, we have the art scroll, so it explains it a little bit of what the Mishnah means. But you take the Mishnah point blank, it's like, what? Okay. If someone says, I'm a Nazir when I have a son, very easy. Doesn't have a son, he's not a Nazir. Oh, and by the way, I'm also a Nazir for 100 days. Doesn't say from now, but let's assume right now it takes effect, right? Mm-hmm. And that Naziris, when he has a son, is the minimum. It's 30 days. So, he does not have a son, and he starts his Naziris for the 100 days that he took upon himself. Having a coffee, day 20, day 40, his wife's entering her 9th month, any baby yet, no baby yet, and then he reaches day 60, and his wife pops out a beautiful baby boy. So, what does he do? He's on day 60, goes to the Rav. The Rav says, I know this Mishnah. This Mishnah says that you lose nothing. Right now, on day 60, you're going to observe your son's Naziris together with your own. So day 61, we've never had
that where it's the same. the same time.
Right. So day 61 is day 61 for his 100th day Naziris, but it's also day 1 for your son's Naziris. So day 61 through 91 will be your son's Naziris, and day 92 is back to your 92nd day.
Right.
But if he is born after 70 days, on day 71, his wife says, my water broke and I am running to the hospital. And look, it's a bouncing baby boy.
Oh.
He forfeits 70 days. Slicer Shivim. Takes out the word Shivim, I see. He must suspend his own Naziris to observe his sons because there is no head shaving for a growth of less than 30 days. What does that mean? That means that on day 71, he says, okay, I have 29 days left of my own Naziris, but I'm going to come back to you on day 101. We'll talk, or like day 102, whatever works out. I got to suspend you. We did great for 71 days. Right now, I got to focus on my son. That's going to kick in. And we're going to go 30 days, and then I'll end up doing a total of 121 days, let's say. But why? Why do you have to suspend your own Naziris? The last 5 words in the Mishnah says, She'ein teglachas pachas mishleishim yom, because there's no head shaving for a growth of less than 30 days.
Why does it have to be that the sun starts right when it's born? You know, why does he wait and then he observes the sun Naziris?
The same way it has to start right when he says he's a Nazir for 100 days. That's when it's activated.
Right.
So let's look at
I would assume.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, I would just think that like nobody wants their Naziris cut. No one wants to like waste days. So if I would have said this statement, I would for sure think like in my mind I would want it to be that if the kid is born at 71, I want mine to finish and then I'll start the sun. It's like, why don't we say that?
Another question at 17-minute mark for Reb. This idea at the end of She'ein teglachas pachas mishleishim yom, because there's no head shaving for a growth of less than 30 days. Let's look at note 6. Since the son's term is for 30 days, it cannot end together with that of the father. Rush notes that the language of the Mishnah is difficult according to the above interpretation, and therefore suggests a second interpretation for this Mishnah, as well as when he finishes on 100-day. Let's say he has a son on day 70, right? So he has 30 days. He shaves his head once at the end of the 100 days, right?
Yep. Even if he had the son on day 50,
right?
He would only shave his head once on day 100, right?
Yeah, you're right. But that head shaving, even though it's one head shaving, it takes care of both Naziris' head shavings.
Yeah.
But when you want to make a case of it's on day 71, the Mishnah is teaching you that you would think that on day 101 you can shave for both. It doesn't work like that.
In which case? In the standard case?
Yeah, let's say you have it, the baby's born on day 72. We only have 28 days in the 100th day. So why can't you just shave your head
on day 102?
On day 102, and it takes care of both. I don't know. I'm trying to find the reason why.
Yeah. Or maybe you do. Maybe that's actually what happens.
But why do you... No, the question is then, why do you have to be Slicer? Why do you have to pause his own son's Naziris? Just because you have less days. Maybe the Torah doesn't want you to wait extra days. When your Naziris is over, you cut your hair. If you're not going to have enough time to take care of both Naziris at the end of one of your terms, then we're suspending them. Then you can't make them concurrent. I think that's it. There's no delay. You finish your 100 days, you take care of business. You shave your head, you bring your kabbanas, you do that. Oh, you can do it together with something else? Great, fine. Once you pass that day 70 mark and you can no longer do them concurrently and take care of everything on day 100 the way the Torah intends you to. So I suppose this is a new recording. I'll have to bunch the two together. But this idea that it needs to be concurrent and needs to end at the same time. Once they're not going to end at the same time, we're not going to do them together. Okay. Amar Rav, Yom Shivim Alei Lachan No Lachan. Day 70 counts towards both the father's term and the son's term. Right?
In which case, Rav argues that if the son's term begins by the 70th day of his own term, the person saves a day on his observance. This is because the day on which his son is born counts for him as 2 days. The first part of the day before his son is born counts as a day of his own term, but then this day is interrupted by the birth of his son, and by the birth of his son and the activation of that term, thus the remainder of the day counts as the first day of the son's term. Since each part of this day counts as a full day's worth of the term, Rav maintains that it counts as 2 days towards the father's term. It's not really 2 days towards the father's term, it's one to his and one to the son's term. As a result, although the offerings for a 100-day term are ordinarily brought on day 101, this person may conclude his Nazir and bring his offerings for both terms on day 100. If the son's term begins on day 70, it concludes on day 99, and its offerings are brought on the next day. So, is this a finish? I guess according to the standard way, you would think that you can't have one day counting for both of them.
Right, and the fact that at 2 o'clock on day 70 you had a baby, that it breaks up. Like once you have part of a day, it breaks it up, and therefore you finish day 70, still day 74. You would think that day 1 has to be. I don't know. I thought that in the Mishnah that day 1 starts the same day as day 70, so therefore, are you saying that you
like Rav
include as Naziris for both terms on day 100? Rosh explains that Rav's ruling lamb count one day as 2 in regards to his own term is a leniency based on the fact that it's only a rabbinic requirement that doesn't wait until the day after his term before shaving. Since on the biblical level, the offerings may be born on the cleaning day of the term, on day 100, we're allowed to count the split 2 days in regards to his own term. Okay.
Okay, so now let's look. The Gemara is going to test Rav's proposition. No level. He was born to him a son, Ad Shivim, up until 70 days into his term, played of Simplot, he loses nothing. He saw the Daita, Oilo Lakan, Ulakan.
If gaining a day, why does the Mishnah say that he does not lose? Right? The Lashon, if you're actually gaining something, you're making some money here, you're gaining some time. You wouldn't say that you're not losing a day.
Actually, it should say that he's a gain. Why does the Mishnah say only that it's not lose? So really, it should be that the Mishnah should not have stated up to 70 he loses nothing. It really should have stated that he gains. You're right. It shouldn't have said that he loses nothing. Right? It should have said he gains. We shoved the Kafani Seva. The end of the Mishnah says that after 70 he forfeits. Tani Resha, Shivim, just as up until
it was a lose-lose situation. The Gemara is saying at the end of the Mishnah we're talking about a case of losing time, so we wanted to make them You wanted to make the language similar, same. So if you want to deal in the case of losing, okay, in the Seifa you're losing, in the Reisha you're not losing. Even though you're actually gaining, we wanted to keep the two. But it's still like, really? Like, I'm all for keeping the same language, but like, not if it hurts the intention of what you're trying to say.
The meaning, right.
Like, I needed Rav to teach me that. Maybe not me, but like, some people will learn the Mishnah and say, you're not going to gain.
Mm-hmm. With you.
So interesting. I had to pause it before, so I hit stop, but there's no pause button. Interesting. Now we have to splice the two, which is fine, Rebbe. Interesting. Okay.
Speak to Riverside.
Toshma. Meiseifa. Come learn to Yufta a refutation from the end of the Mishnah. Noel acher shivim soisa shivim. If his son is born after 70 days, he forfeits 70. According to Rav, even if the son is born on day 71, he loses no days. Note 11. According to the Mishnah statement, it should follow that if the son was born on day 71, the person does forfeit. He is not able to observe the two terms concurrently. This can only be so if day 71 is counted for his own term, but not for his son. Right? Thus, when the count for his son's Nazirs begins on the next day, 72, only 29 days remain of his own term, while the son's term has a full 30 days run. Since the son's term would conclude after the father's term, the two must be observed separately. Accordingly, the person now must observe a total of 130 days. However, according to Rav, day 71 is not only the 71st day of the person's own term, but also the first day of the son's term. Since this day counts towards the son's term, nothing should be forfeited because the son's term would end on day 100 after his father's original term. Those both terms should run concurrently. Why does Mishnah say 70? According to you, Rav, it should be day 71. My acher. What does Mishnah mean when it says after 70 days? Acher. It means well after. Meaning not literally day 71, but day 72. That's a chiddush. Aval acher mamish mai. But if the son is born immediately after 70 days on day 71, what will the law be? Hachinami deloisas. According to Rav, you would have to say that indeed it does not cause forfeiture. Ihachi my area detani nola atshivim leihivsitlam. What is the point of the Mishnah stating if a son was born to him up to 70 days into his term, he loses nothing? I feel achashivim nami. Even if the son is born after 7 days, on the 71st day, ha'amar deloisas, you say he doesn't forfeit. El shmamina achar mamish. V'cheimas nisan rav shmamina. And so in the Mishnah we learn contrary to Rav's ruling. If you want to say achar is achar, and not achar mamish, then why in the Reisha did you say a son was born to him ad shivim? It shouldn't say ad shivim, it should say ad shivim ve'echad. The fact that it says shivim shows that we're dealing with actually 70, and after 70 means immediately after, on day 71. Now, Reb Eliyahu can say that ad doesn't mean ad mamish, it means ad achna.
Right. Why doesn't he say that? Ad acher.
I don't know.
What?
Or ad like including. But it's day 70. We need day. Once you say ad is like, even if you include day 70, it doesn't include 71.
71. So therefore, okay, so what was the question? So if according to him, you don't lose on day 71, right? That's the fact. Correct? You don't lose on day 71?
Correct.
So when it said, Acher Shivim, Seiser, that's not true. So we have to say that means Acher. But if it's Acher, then how are you going to read the first part of the Mishnah when it says that you don't lose? El Shramina Acher Mamesh. So basically what it's saying is there's no way to learn it according to Rav.
Yeah, Rav's whole reason is predicated on Acher means Acher, because I need that day 71. Comes along the Mishnah, comes along the Gemara and says, oh, really? If that means day 71, then why in the Reisha did you say Ad Shivim? It should have said Ad Shivim Ve'echad, technically.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty good, right? Yeah.
Okay. So now, which Tanaitic view, which Tana does Rav state as ruling? Rav, Kaman Amr Mishmaite. Now, Rav, according to whom did he say is teaching? Which Tana accepts the principle that one day can count for 2 different days?
Okay.
Basically, and that would not be like the Tana of our Mishnah.
Correct.
The Gemara considers a possible source in a brisa dealing with the laws of Avelis. If we say that Rav is following Abishal, it's not. For we have learned in a brisa in Moed Katan, Hakoiver es Mesei Shleishiyam Kaitim L'Regel. If someone buries his dead relative 3 days before Yantif, Batla Mimenu Gzeres Shiva, the edict of the 7 days of mourning is canceled for him. Shmani Yamim Kaitim L'Regel. If the burial was 8 days before a festival, Batla Mimenu Gzeres Shleishim. The edict of the 30 days of mourning is canceled for him. Sorry, I was spacing out while I was reading this. The edict of the 7 days of mourning is canceled for him. If the burial was 8 days before a festival, the edict of the 30 days of mourning, right, the Shleishim, and he's permitted to cut his hair the day before the Yantiv. However, he did not cut his hair the day before the festival. Also, Saber Achar Haregel is permitted to cut his hair after the festival, and he would have to wait the Shleishim. Meaning, if you have to be Mekayim something here, right? So if someone buries his dead 3 days before a festival, the 7 days of mourning is canceled for him.
Yeah.
The festival,
the Shiva ends.
Right.
When the Yom Tov
buries it
starts.
8 days
Similarly,
before a festival.
Right,
He's
you have
doing the
Shleishim
full
for 30
week of
days.
Shiva, and he's doing the full week of Shiva. Then the Shleishim is canceled.
Which normally Shleishim would continue for the whole, that Yom Tov, and then even a few weeks after Yom Tov.
Rabbi Binyomin, this idea that you're allowed to permit the guy to cut his hair before the Yom Tov, is that also when you're burying your dead 3 days before a festival?
Doesn't sound like it.
No, okay.
Because, yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
Well, it's just when you're burying the dead 8 days before them.
Right. A person can't cut his hair the entire Shleishim.
Right.
Right? But if the Shleishim, it was like Shiva's finished, and then Shleishim was even 1 day before the Yantiv, the Yantiv cuts off the rest of the Shleishim, and he's allowed to take a haircut every Yantiv. Except, but if he didn't, seems like that's the end of this verse is saying, he didn't avail himself the opportunity to cut his hair on Erev Yantiv, then the Shleishim will continue after Yantiv, or whatever is remaining. Okay? So, Abishal Omer.
That's of Amit Beis. Abishal Omer. Afilei Sipur Kaidim HaRegel. Even if he didn't cut his hair before the Yantiv, Mutter Safa Achar Regel. Shechashem Shmitzah Shleishim Mevateles Ksir Shiva. For just as the observance of the 3 days cancels the 7, Mitzvah Shiva Mevateles Ksir Shleishim. So too, the observance of the 7 days cancels the Shleishim, meaning once it's canceled, it's batal.
Yeah.
Now, why does Abishal, like if I saw that Mishnah, I would not have been like, hey, that's like Rav. What's the connection? My time at Abishal. What's Abishal's reason? La mishum diksava shvi oil lechan. Is it not because he holds that the 7th day counts towards both the Shiva and the Shleishim?
Oh, concurrent terms. I like that.
The Gemara assumes that Abishal agrees with the first Tana that Shleishim is counted by the festival only if the first day of the Shleishim has been observed prior to the festival. Therefore, the reason Abishal rules that 7 days before this festival suffice to cancel the Shleishim must be because he maintains that the 7th day counts not only as the last day of the Shiva, but also as the first day of the Shleishim. The first part of the day counts as day 7 towards the Shiva, while the second part of the day counts as day 8 of the mourning period towards the Shleishim. Thus, in effect, 7 days of mourning are counted as 8. This supports Rav's contention that the day of the son's birth counts as 2 days. The first part of the day as the 70th day of the father's term, the second part of the first day of the son's term, and therefore the 71st day of the father's term as well. So, Zakta Gemara, Dilma Adkan Leika Amar, Abishal El Babe Shiva Drabanan. Perhaps Abishal said this leniency only for the 7-day period of mourning, which is a Drabanan Dika Inyan. Aval ben Nazir Dairaisaloi, but not for the laws of Nazir, which is of biblical origin. We can't conflate the 2 days. Thus, Abishal cannot be seen as a source of Rav. So we need to find another Tanaic source for Rav. Ela Rav the Amar Rabbi Yosi. Rather, Rav was speaking according to Rabbi Yosi. The Tanya, for we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Yosi Emer Shemeres Yom Kineged Yom, a woman who was observing a clean day against the previous day in which she became tamei because of a discharge of blood. When a woman menstruates, the Torah decrees that she becomes tamei and forbidden to her husband for 7 days. She is known as a nida. At the conclusion of these 7 days, the nida must immerse herself in a mikvah to become tar and permitted to her husband. Following the 7-day nida period, a woman enters her time of ziva, the period of unusual flow. For the next 11 days, should she experience a flow of blood at any time, she becomes tamei and forbidden to her husband, according to the following rules. If she experiences discharge on just 1 or 2 consecutive days, she becomes immediately tamei, but this requires her to observe only 1 clean day, 1 day entirely free of blood. She may immerse herself that day, and if she experiences no further discharge, she becomes tar in the evening. A woman in these circumstances is known as a zavek tana, or a shemeres yom kineged yom, a woman who observes a day free of discharge against the day on which she experienced a discharge of blood. However, if she experiences a flow of blood on 3 consecutive days during the 11 days of ziva, she becomes a zavek daila, a major zava, and she must count 7 clean days before she may immerse herself. She is permitted to her husband that night after immersing, but on the next day she must bring an offering of 2 turtle doves or 2 young doves. One is brought as a chatas offering, and the other as an ola offering. Only after her offerings is she completely tar. The ziva period lasts 11 days, from immediately after the 7-day nida period through the 18th day of her cycle. A woman can become a zava only during these 11 days. Once they have passed, her next discharge of blood renders her a nida, and the entire 18-day cycle begins again. The law described to this point is the biblical law. However, in already Talmudic times, it became the practice to treat every nida as a zava, so that today even a nida cannot become tar until she counts 7 clean days. As Zayzak the Gemara, nida, daf, samach, vav, amud aleph. So, now that we know what the Bryson, we know the case of Anida, let's see why Rav is according to Rabbi Yosi. Titania, Rabbi Yosi Aimer Shemeres Yom Kineged Yom, a woman who has observed a clean day against the previous day in which she became tamei because of discharge of blood. Sheshachatu v'zarka aleh, and they slaughtered a Pesach offering for her and threw its blood on the altar. B'shnei shla, on her second day, on the day she's observing as clean, v'ach rasa, later that day she saw blood, she experienced another discharge. Areza and Echla, she may not eat from the Pesach offering that evening since she will be tamei. Pesach sheni, but she's exempt from making the second Pesach offering. If someone is unable to offer the Pesach offering on the 14th day of Nisan because he or she is tamei, the Torah commands him. Oh, is this like Pesach time?
Yes, it sounds like someone who's tamei is not able to eat from the carbon Pesach, and then they have a chance by Pesach Sheni. But she was already counted. But you have to be counted in on the carbon Pesach. Okay. So she was already counted on regular Pesach, but then she became tamei afterwards. So it's saying she's not allowed to eat because she's getting tamei. At the same time, she's pater from Pesach Sheni, because it sounds like she was already counted for her first Pesach.
Well, because if you're tamei, then you have to offer Pesach Sheni?
Yes.
And in this case, she was tamei she was tahar part of the day, right?
I think you know where this is going. She was tahar part of
the day, but she didn't eat. And eating is part of the mitzvah over there?
Well, yeah, you gotta eat from the carbon Pesach, and you have to be included in that carbon Pesach. So probably the Gemara will go into it a little bit. Omer. So my time at Rabbi Yossi. Why does Rabbi
My time at Rabbi Yossi,
hold
Lav Mishum Diksavar Mikzas Hayam Mikkulei, and not because he holds that part of the day counts like a whole day.
like Rebelli just said?
The first part of the day prior to the discharge of blood counts as a completely blood-free day, and since she immersed herself in the mikveh that morning, that Pesach offering was made on her behalf while she was tahar. Hence, she fulfilled her obligation to participate in offering a Pesach, and she need not offer a Pesach on the second Pesach. Discharge later in the day does not cancel the blood-free status established in the first part of the day. Rather, it is treated as occurring on a different day, for which she must observe yet another clean day. Her situation is considered analogous to that of a woman who experienced discharge of blood on day one, observed the next day as clean, and then experienced another discharge on the third day. So we have like a full day here. My time there is La Mishum Diksar Mixas Yang Kikulai Mimai Vidilma Mishum Diksar Mikan. Lahaba Humitame, and he holds that the discharge of blood renders her tame only from now forward and not retroactively. This supports Rav's ruling that a single day can count for a person as 2 different days. In fact, the Gemara, you want to say that? Does Rabbi Yossi indeed hold this? That the tumah from the second discharge is only from that time forward and not retroactive? I Tanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Zav Bal Shtei Re'iyos. I love it. Every paragraph here is another, new entity that requires many footnotes. Or maybe not. A Zav of 2 emissions. Sheshachatu B'zarko Lav B'shvi, for whom they slaughtered the Pesach offering and threw its blood on the altar on the 7th day of his purification. And similarly, a woman who was observing a clean day against the previous day on which she became tamei because of a discharge of blood, and they slaughtered a Pesach offering for her and threw the blood on the altar.
Which is the case we just had.
Right. And later that day they saw experience another discharge. Even though they render a couch and see tamei retroactively, they're nevertheless exempt from making this Pesach offering. Contrary to our previous explanation, the Rabbi Yossi clearly rules that their tumah is retroactive. Why? Where do you see that from the Yossi in this brisa?
That
even though they render a couch and see tamei retroactively, they contaminate with tumah anything upon which they sit or lie, even kushas or So you see earlier that in that case, you are...
So it's not pshat that we're counting one day for 2 terms. Like one day, it's like a tar status and a tummy status. Actually, retroactively, it's all coming. And
right.
Why then does the carbon Pesach work? That's probably just like a separate thing, right? So, because then why does... That's my question. Like, why then are they putter for making Pesach sheni? So let's see, note 17. Someone can be retroactive only if we regard the whole day as one unit. In that case, we say that the discharge which occurred at the end of the day reveals that the whole day was a time of tumah. But it was claimed above that according to Rabbi Yossi, the day is divided into 2 parts. The first part before the discharge is counted as a whole day of purity, and the second part of the day after the discharge is counted as a subsequent day of tumah. If so, the tumah cannot be retroactive. So it's coming out that it's retroactive. I still don't get why. Fine. You want to say it's retroactive?
According
why
to Rabbi Yossi, the reason we came onto Rabbi Yossi is because we need, right? Rav says that 1 day is counted as 2 days. And Rabbi Yossi says that by the case of the Zava. But here, you see that Rabbi Yossi holds that when something happens that causes tumah, retroactively, the beginning of that day is considered a day of tumah. We don't break it up into 2 separate days. Meaning, now we have a steer, not just that it's not good with Rav, but now we have a steer in Rabbi Yossi. Why in this case over here does he say lemafreya and it's considered 1 day, whereas the case earlier we deemed it to be 2 days? That even though she had a discharge, we look at it as a separate day, and earlier she was able to, she was discharged from having to bring a Pesach carbon.
Oh, okay, I got it. We're trying to understand Yossi's reason why he would say that the carbon, like that first carbon works for that person. We thought it's because you could split 2 days, 1 day into two parts. But now we're seeing open art that you cannot split 1 day into two. That's because it's saying
because if that was the case, then the
tumah would not. Right, because it's showing that the tumah does work about prayer. So, Elamai, there must be some other reason the BSC holds that this person is hunter from bringing a Pesach Sheni, but it's not because we split 1 day into two. And therefore, if he holds it, if he doesn't hold that you split 1 day into two, then we don't have a reason, like, for Rav, who is he holding like? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mila Mafreya, what is the meaning of retroactive here? Midrabanan, retroactive by rabbinic law. However, on the biblical level, they render things tummy only from the time of the discharge forward. Meaning, you're right, by the carbon Pesach, we do split it up into 2 days. And that is from a biblical perspective. But when we were talking here that Lamafreya, the couch, is tummy, that's from a rabbinic level. The Rabbanan are not super excited to keep things tahar after you saw something on the same day.
And look at note 18.
Bro.
Look at note 18. Thus, it is possible to argue that on a biblical level, at least, Rabbi Yossi counts 1 day as two.
Yes. Indeed, this seems the more reasonable explanation. The if it should cross your mind that the retroactive tumah is based on biblical law, why are they exempt from making a second Pesach? Right. Right, which is our question. Like, that's why we have this question.
Around that. Right.
Right. If we're saying that it's biblical, then over there you should have to bring a second Pesach Sheni.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, I can tell you that tumah is retroactive based on biblical law. As to your objection that there should not then be an exemption from the second carbon Pesach, the answer is this. They permitted someone with tumah on the deep of Ziva to offer the Pesach sacrifice.
And there's certain
there's a
that we're allowed.
In terms of that the Torah allows it. Let's see, note 20. Tumah the deep is a source of tumah whose existence could not have been known. The expression depicts something unknowable like the ocean depths or like a deeply buried grave. Tumah the deep is generally associated with tumah mace. Due to its unknowable nature, the halacha teaches that special leniencies apply to it. Most importantly, that a sacrifice offered on behalf of someone in this state of tumah is valid if the tumah is not discovered until afterwards. The Gemara suggests here that Rabbi Yossi holds that this law applies to the tumah ziva as well. Even if a discharge laid in the 7th day of Azab or on the cleaned of a woman observing a single day renders them tummy retroactively, in effect nullifying their earlier immersion in the mikvah. Nevertheless, the retroactive tumah is unknowable at the time of the Pesach offering was made on their behalf. It is thus a case of tumah on the deep, unknowable tumah, and according to Tan of the Raisa, such tumah does not obligate a second Pesach offering. So even though the tumah of the couch, even though the couch is going to be retroactively tameh midaraisa, the Pesach Sheni, the Torah says when you didn't know, we're not going to, or something happens later on that effectively would make her tameh earlier in the day. Given the unknownness, the Torah says that we are not going to make her bring a second carbon Pesach. Separately, I was just curious because it's note 13 that I want to look at, but in this case where we brought Rabbi Yossi initially and he spoke about a case of a zav of 2 emissions, for whom they slaughtered the Pesach offering and threw its blood on the altar of the 7th day of the purification. I just didn't even though that wasn't the crux of what we were talking about, I just didn't understand that case. So I just want to look at note 13.
Okay. Yeah.
The zav of 2 emissions for whom they slaughtered the Pesach offering and threw its blood on the altar on the 7th day of the purification. Okay. The zav requires 7 clean days to become tahar, as explained in the previous note. An immersion in the spring on the 7th day. Pesach offering was made on his behalf after he had immersed on his seventh clean day on the assumption that by nightfall he would be tar. The Brisa speaks of a zav of 2 emissions because his purification is complete in 7 days. The zav of 3 emissions does not complete in tar until he over sacrifices on the 8th day. So he's a zav of 2 emissions, and they shechted the carbon Pesach and threw its blood on the 7th day, and later they saw he experienced another discharge. Okay, so you have that limbo period where something happened later on when you assumed he would be tar. Okay. The Gemara has now offered 2 interpretations of Rabbi Yossi's view. Whether that the retroactive tumah is of rabbinic origin, but on the biblical level, this day counts as both the final clean day and the first day of new tumah. The Gemara also noted the possibility explained to be of biblical origin, and thus the exemption of the second Pesach is due to the principle. Hold on, I forgot the first one.
Right.
The Gemara Rav subscribes to the view that the retroactive tumah is of rabbinic origin. On the biblical level, this day counts as both. Yeah, it's 2 days. We need to figure out how to get Rabbi Yossi to be 2 days. So one is you can look at it that it's retroactive rabbinically, but on the biblical level it's 2 days. Or no, even biblically, you could say that there's an exemption, the Tumah of the Deep, and that's why it's 2 days. Okay. The Gemara now demonstrates that Rabbi Shaya also understood Rabbi Yossi's retroactive Tumah to be of only rabbinic origin. That is the first way we prescribed Rabbi Yossi. This case that it's only Tumah there. Okay. The Tanya, Rabbi Yoshi says, Aval haroy ze b'shvish shalei seisah es shalafana. But if someone sees experiences a ziva discharge on his seventh day of cleanliness, it causes him to forfeit the preceding days.
Gonna start
Rabbi Yochanan said to him, "Lo nister eliyam." It should not cause him to forfeit any more than that 1 day. Okay, so we see Rabbi Ishia says, in order to become tar, a zav must observe 7 consecutive clean days free of discharge. Rabbi Ishia rules that even if he experiences discharge on the 7th day, he must repeat 7 consecutive days without discharge. The 6.5 clean days which preceded his present discharge are forfeit. Azai zakt Rabbi Ishia. And Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you only lose that 1 day. Manavshach. Either way, you argue that it's difficult. The Gemara has difficulty understanding Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Isasar kulei sasar. If it causes forfeiture, then it should cause him forfeiture for all. Iloi sasar loy nister v'layamav. And if it does not cause forfeiture, it should not cause him to forfeit even that day. Elaim rather correct Rabbi Yochanan to say loy nister v'layamav. It should not cause him to forfeit even that 1 day. Amar le Rabbi Yossi kavasech. And Rabbi Yossi said to him, Rabbi Yossi holds like you. For he says that it renders him tame from now forward. Rabbi Yossi said the tuma is retroactive. So Rabbi Yossi says to Rabbi Yochanan that, oh yeah, it doesn't cause him to forfeit even that 1 day, is because you look at that beginning of the day as a partly tahar day, right? And from now forward, you're tameh, but beforehand you're not. Didn't Rabbi Yossi say l'mafrehu da'amar that tumah is retroactive? The couch is going to be tameh. No, my l'mafreya m'darbanan. We see here that what does it mean l'mafreya? It means only rabbinically. Clearly, Rabbi Yossi understood Rabbi Yossi to mean that there is a retroactive tumah only rabbinically, but under biblical law, the tumah is only from that time forward. However, Rabbi Yossi himself does not hold Rabbi Yossi's view, rather follows the view that tumah is retroactive on the biblical level, therefore it causes a forfeiture according to him on all 7 days. So we have here, according to Rabbi Ishia, that Rabbi Yossi holds like Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yossi we brought on initially because that explained that Rabbi Yossi is who Rav is the Tana on who Rav holds like, and we explained that it can mean either from a rabbinic level or from a biblical level. According to Rabbi Yossi, now we have a question. The Gemara is going to end off before we finish this Halaga Perek. our second parak completed here in Masechtas Nazir. Gemara explains how it is possible to have a zavik daila according to Rabbi Yossi. A woman who has note 4, a woman who has a zava discharge on 3 consecutive days is a zavik daila, a major zava, who must count 7 consecutive clean days, accompanied by an immersion on the 7th day and sacrifice on the 8th day. A woman who has a zava discharge on 3 consecutive days is a zavik daila. Who must count 7 consecutive clean days, accompanied by an immersion on the 7th day and sacrifice on the 8th day. Oh, this is after she finished her 7. So now she has, I believe, 3 discharges. She now has to count 7 consecutive clean days, accompanied by immersion on the 7th day and sacrifice on the 8th day. According to Rabbi Yossi, Michti, summer makes us a let us see now, since he holds that part of the day is like the whole day, Zava Gemura Demaisa Carbon Hachi Mishkachasla, how can there ever be found a complete Zava who's obligated to bring a sacrifice? Even the Chazub Plagid Yemis, since she experiences her second discharge of blood during only part of the day, Idach Plagid Yemis Salat Lashimar, the other earlier part of the day rarely counted for as an observance of a clean day. Right? You already have a clean day, so we ignore it. You're never going to have 3. Let's see, note 5. The woman discharges blood on Monday afternoon. She becomes stomach for that rest of the day, and she must observe Tuesday as a clean day. If she experiences no further discharge from nightfall until Tuesday morning, then according to Rizzi, this is counted as though she has gone through a full day without a discharge. She may immerse herself in a mikvah and be completely rid of tumah generated by Monday's discharge. I didn't think that was the case, but okay. If she sees blood later in the day on Tuesday, then this treated as a different day and is merely the first of a new episode of Ziva. The discharge of Monday afternoon and Tuesday afternoon are in fact treated as though separated by day, not as discharges on consecutive days. Since a woman must experience discharges on 3 consecutive days to become a Zavadayla, how can there ever be a case of Zavadayla according to Rabbi Yossi? If you say the Gashafa plus Yem Bahadi Adadi, that her flow lasted continuously for 3 consecutive days, so she never had a period. She never had a. I didn't mean that. Period. Okay. She never had a time in which she didn't stop bleeding, so it was 3 consecutive days, which is, it's a good answer. That's like a far-fetched answer. And if you prefer to say that she experiences discharges for 3 consecutive days near sunset, so that there is no time that can count towards the counting of a clean day. Meaning, once the day started, I'm assuming this means once the day started, it was never a clean day. So she never had a start of a day in which she was clean, and therefore you can have
beginning and end of the day.
Is not blood free, it cannot be counted as a clean day. The concept that part of the day counts completely refers to the beginning of the day, example, which is a chiddush. It's interesting. For example, a woman experiences discharge of blood close to sunset on Sunday. This renders Sunday a tameh day by virtue of a part of the discharge occurred before nightfall. On Monday, a tameh day by virtue of the part of the discharge lasted after nightfall. Monday, which is blood, does not count as a clean day since the discharge occurred at the beginning of it. By the same token, the discharge occurred before and after sunset on Monday renders Tuesday the 3rd consecutive every day. As so, this movement states that even at the end of the day can count as a clean day, nevertheless, only the beginning or the end of the day can count as a clean day. The lucky period in the middle of the day, bracketed by discharges at the beginning at the end of the day, cannot be considered. Places argues on that. But in this case, you can explain Rabbi Yossi to say that before and after sunset, so she never really had a clean moment.
Hadron Allah, Harini Nazir.
We shall turn to you, Harini Nazir. I love that. Okay. Beautiful. When are you coming back?
Come back this afternoon.
Beautiful. Okay, so we'll be with Kesha.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, cloud. Maybe I get the most schar for this day.
Very good. That's it. That's how it works,
See you.
Day by day.
See you later, Gator.
Not for a while.